This is Cross Culture Podcast with Belle Tindall and Lauren Windle,
where we talk pop culture and current affairs from a Christian perspective.
Oh, hello, Lauren.
Hello, Belle. How are you doing?
Oh, well, I'm all right. Listen, I'm just going to be honest, everybody. It's the first week of our new time zone.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And it has hit me like a ton of bricks.
You needed that hour, didn't you?
I don't know what's wrong with me. I was just saying this to producer Chris, I genuinely can't keep my eyes open.
Back in the days BC in my life, not just in the lives of everyone, in my life, the days BC, clocks changing was either catastrophe or brilliant because as a drug addict, and it happens on a Saturday night to early Sunday morning, every single time for about 3 years, 6 times, I was in a club when it happened. And the bonus hour is so, because you're like, oh my gosh, it's 1 o'clock. And then you're like, hang on, it's that like still 1 o'clock or whatever. Like it gets to 2 o'clock and then it goes back to 1 o'clock again. And you're like free hour of drug taking and dancing.
Woo-hoo. Yeah, but the opposite will have happened to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Where you're like, oh my gosh, the club is closing. What is happening?
And I've only just got here.
Yeah, this was not my plan. So I used to hate it then, but these days I sleep through it like any normal person.
Yeah, you sleep through it and then you just wake up the next day half dead and wonder why. And then,
Yeah, I preached twice yesterday and had lunch with you, Belle.
Yeah, you did. We should say that yesterday for us is Sunday.
Oh, we've broken the fourth wall now, and now they know that this isn't live recorded. We've recorded this on Monday 31st, guys.
Yeah, you've let people write in. But yeah, we had a lovely, but full day yesterday.
Yeah.
So I think that what happened was the hour change combined with a full itinerary of a day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out.
You're out. You're out.
Yeah. I'm absolutely out.
Yeah. What do you do when you're tired? Are you a Diet Coke gal? Are you a double coffee, double espresso?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a coffee girl. I have never in my life had a Red Bull.
That's wild. They are quite a unique taste. I think you can taste the caffeine. Because there's this weird taste in them. So when in the years BC, I used to get to the station, the platform in Clapham Junction, platform 11, to go out to Surrey to go to college. I used to get there 5 minutes early because my breakfast was a Red Bull and a cigarette.
Fair enough. Did it serve you well?
Starting my day. It's wild how as a teenager that the ingestion of chemicals affects you in no way whatsoever, because that would be a day ruiner for me now. That would absolutely be the worst way to set myself up. I don't think I even noticed. You know?
But it wouldn't give you wings now.
Yeah. Whereas back then, flying up and down that 8:15 train to Isha. Yeah.
I have never, ever had one. And I like that it's one of my... So there are certain things now which I've accidentally never done.
Mm-hmm. Like I've got a friend who's never been in a hot tub. Have you been in a hot tub?
Oh, plenty of times.
Yeah. It's people soup, she says. People soup.
I mean, I can't... It is. There's no denying that. Especially public ones.
Oh, public ones.
That really is people soup.
If I can't smell the chlorine, I'm going nowhere near it.
If you can smell caffeine in it, you're also going nowhere near
it's got that Red Bull smell. You're like, oh, probably not. Yeah. Tell me, what else have you not done?
Yeah, so it started off accidental, but now I'm keeping it going so that it can continue to be my fact. I have never in my life seen an episode of The Simpsons.
I don't know what to do. I don't. As a kid, right, when it was on at 6 o'clock, what were you watching? When Neighbours had finished, what did you do? Just turn off your telly like a weirdo?
No, Home and Away. Neighbours finishes, I'm going to Home and Away. And then Hollyoaks. And then...
so you skipped that 6 to 6:30 slot in Channel 4.
100%.
You weren't even watching Fresh Prince in that time. That's weird.
No, I wasn't watching. I don't think I've ever seen an episode of that either.
Well, do you understand the anxiety dance that's happening now then as a trend on social media? You're sort of off social media for Lent, aren't you? So maybe you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I'm semi off social media. I have seen it because it's the Doechii song, right? But if someone was like, what's this iconic dance off? I'd say, I mean, I'd be able to guess it was Fresh
To be
Prince
fair,
because
that's
of Will
not
Smith.
that's not the primary iconic dance from Will Smith, is it? It's the Carlton dance. The
Yeah,
duh,
you're right. Yeah.
jump on it, jump on it. That's
Yeah.
the dance that will never die from Fresh Prince.
It'll never die. But yeah,
More
never
power
seen
to
that
it.
and never seen Simpsons. And Simpsons is harder to have never seen because people like to talk about it a lot.
Is that's the Simpsons movie and any episode of the? Because
I tell you-
it's just built into our culture now. Simpsons jokes, like they come up all
Yeah.
the time. Like, what about the Spider Pig song? What
I was
about It's
about
All
to
Coming Up
say-
Millhouse?
No, I don't know what Millhouse is.
It's All
But-
Coming Up Millhouse is when like everything's just really going your way.
Ah,
Because one time a character called Millhouse had everything go his way, and he was like, "It's all coming up Millhouse," and it's just it's in my. I'd say I say that at least once a week.
do you? It's probably
Only
in
when
your
things are
vocab.
coming up Millhouse.
Of course. Otherwise it'd be no. I will say that Spider Pig, the whole Spider Pig, like that's the only cultural reference I would get. That's
Okay.
it. And the fact that once I tried to do an impression of someone, and my fiance said I sounded like Marge Simpson. I wouldn't know.
Were you a bit croaky?
Yeah, I was a bit croaky. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I was trying to be Tony Badingham of Rivals.
Wait, Rivals is in the Jilly Cooper novel.
Yeah,
now turned into.
yeah.
I've not watched that. I thought it was probably a bit spicy.
It was a bit spicy. But I was trying to do so. Tony Badingham, who is David Tennant's character, does lots of like grunting, like. And so I was trying to be Tony Badingham and just do lots of like grumbling and like very masculine grunting. And then Sam was like, "You're just sounding like Marge Simpson."
I love that. Have you managed to get any work done then, given that you're so exhausted having lost an hour? Because how's this week looking so far?
Oh, it's looking all right. It's probably not my best quality week, but there we go. What are you going to do? I'll have a Red
Sometimes you've just gotta
Bull,
get it
crack
done.
some Simpsons on and hope for the best. Hope for the best.
I'm actually writing a list of things. So I know you're about to move us on to the next segment,
No,
but I
go
just
on.
thought I'm writing a list of things. I'm actually nowhere near 40, right? But I am what my brother-in-law has described me for the last 5 years as mid to late 30s. I think I was 32 when he started.
Not okay.
So,
that is not okay.
He is
That would mean that me at the age of 28, I'm early 30s. And that's not true.
Well, if you meet him, he will be like, "Oh, early 30s Belle." Like, absolutely. If he's decided that you're fair game to take the mick out of, that would come.
Yeah.
But he has been sent to me by the Lord to humble me at every opportunity, I would say. But I'm writing a list of, I'm going to do a 40 before 40. But because some of those things involve like travel that I'd need to save up for, that I need to put time, but I'm starting to think about it now because I want to give myself 3 full years to achieve.
Yeah.
Like I want one of them
All
to be a
40
safari in Kenya, which is like spectacular. But you can't have many of those on your list if you're not going to go broke, basically.
Yeah,
so
fair enough.
So I'm starting to think of things I've never done before. And at the moment, I want to ride on a tandem bike, like a bicycle made for two.
Oh, I've done that.
I've not done that. And I also want to do an indoor skydive, not a real skydive, but just
up, like,
about a
the
meter
sheep
off the
thing.
ground.
Yeah, like where you're in like this like tube.
Yeah. Have you done that?
No, but I would
Okay.
definitely be more inclined to do that than the real thing.
Yeah, totally. So if you can think of any random things like that I should add to my 40 before 40. I have had a Red Bull and watched The Simpsons though, sadly, so they can't make the list.
I mean, you could watch Rivals.
Yeah. Is that epic enough that it would be on my 40 before 40? Do we love Jilly Cooper that much? I do love David Tennant quite a lot, to be fair.
He's quite magnificent in it.
He's magnificent. Okay, maybe I'll put that on the list. Thanks.
It's very sexy.
Okay.
But aside from that, I'd recommend it. It's set in the Cotswolds in like the 80s. What could go wrong?
Oh, stop it. I bet the fashions are fabulous.
Oh, yeah.
All
Like,
shoulder pads and
all shoulder
oversized
pads and
jewellery.
big perms.
Love it. Love it. Right, move us on seamlessly to the section that I just pulled us back out of.
Yes,
Go on, Belle.
moving on seamlessly. So no, none of my work has been of good quality this week. Apologies to my lovely editor, who I do know listens to this podcast. Hello, Nick. Thank you for being with me this week.
Thanks, Nick, for being so patient with Belle
Oh,
in her engagement week and the week that they changed the clocks on her. So
it's been a lot. There's a lot on this plate of mine. And so harping back to a happier time,
yes,
a more energized time where I did write quite a good article.
Tell us.
It happens every now and again. I wrote it for Seen and Unseen. And
We love
basically
Seen
what
and
I've
Unseen.
become, and I told you this, I started thinking about this yesterday when you and I had lunch, Lauren, because I just mentioned in passing that I seem to have become the Christian consultant for witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
As in, if any Christian wants to know anything about witches, they seem to come my way. So that's a bit fun. And as part of that role of my life, I wrote an article recently because I was walking out of the cinema and I was walking behind these two women and they were talking about, I just was eavesdropping, like shamelessly, and they were talking about witches and they were saying, do you know what? I think witches might be women's Roman Empire, as in something they think about at least once a day. And then this other one was like, yeah, no, I think you're so right. She was like, I think about witches literally nonstop. And then this other girl was like, I think it's just part of what it is to be a woman. And they were having this big discussion about how part of being a woman is that you have this odd fascination and like pull towards witches. Now, whether that be like Harry Potter, Wicked,
just a sort of general like cartoonification of witchcraft in like a reasonably inoffensive kind of painting it as like not that big a deal type thing.
Yeah, totally. And I think they have grounds to suggest that because you and I both work in the realm of writing and publishing, etc., etc. And so we both know that romantasy is a book having hex appeal. Like these are actual literary categories now.
Yeah.
So there's grounds for that.
You've covered so much there so quickly, right? And so number one, my Roman Empire is not witches. And I think that possibly we're a little bit cut off from that, even though we are very, you know, we sort of take a real interest in women's issues and stuff like that. And the feminist movement has adopted witchcraft as like an icon of feminism. And we'll come back to that. So it's the sort of thing that maybe if we weren't Christian, we would feel more of a pull towards, but I don't at all towards witchcraft. And I think that is, you know, I have my spiritual cup is totally full with the whole Jesus thing, which I'm super committed to. So I don't feel that, but I hear it. I hear it culturally and I hear it all the time. Incidentally, my Roman Empire is like Victorian era Britain. Definitely. London specifically, probably East End London.
Oh, yeah. Is this tied to like where murders happen and stuff like that?
Yeah. The Jack the Ripper stuff. Like I don't care about Jack the Ripper himself, but his victims, I've like...
You think about them once a day?
Certainly like 2 to 3 times a week, I'd say.
That is a lot because for me, that would be...
Rare, would it?
Well, oh my gosh, this might be another thing to go on the list of things I've never done. Thought about Jack the Ripper's victims.
Okay, you need to read the book The Five by Hallie Rubenhold.
Right.
It is an absolutely spectacular example of historical journalism. Like I've never seen anything so detailed and so dignified to those women. And also, interestingly, they were all... I think I'm right in saying they were all addicts of some kind, which may add to my interest.
Sure.
They were not all prostitutes, despite reports of the time and since. They were not all prostitutes. I think that there's evidence that 2 of them had accepted money in exchange for sex, but often it's workhouses, it's ill treatment at the hands of men that have left them in very dangerous and vulnerable positions, and then finally they were killed. So yes, I do. I think about that all the time. Witch talk has become huge with the sort of younger people. Romantasy, actually the romantasy books, which are biggest at the moment, so Court of Thorns and Roses, is not specifically about witchcraft. There are spells in it. It's about fairies.
Yes, it is.
But like big, sexy male fairies, not like Tinkerbell.
Big, sexy male fairies.
Yeah.
Think Rivals crossed with Tinkerbell.
Yeah. If you can get your imagination to do that. And then Fourth Wing, which is about dragons and powers that come through. Actually, there are spells, but there's no sort of specific like witches in that. Both of those I would exercise huge caution in reading as Christians. I think that they are designed to tap into a spiritual need that we have. And I think that they can be almost too compelling.
Oh, really? I've not read either, just for the record, but that's really interesting. Have you read both?
I've read both. And if something's super popular in mainstream culture, I make a point of engaging with it. I want to know what's capturing people's attention, right? And is there something that the Christian world can speak into this? And there is, 100% there is. And that's why it's so important that people like you, Bella, are researching what is so enticing about these kinds of movements, right? Because we've got the real answers, and there's something temporary in these, like, indulging in these sort of fantasy worlds and stuff. But they, in the same way that social media is designed to hit on relentless sort of dopamine release, there's something in them, the formula that they hit, that is completely intoxicating in a way that actually I don't think is very healthy. They're super sexual as well, but no more so than I've heard reports about Rivals. Like, there's a lot of sex in them, but I think that, you know, everyone's got to make their own decision about content with sex in, but we've certainly talked about things with plenty of sex in the past. So it's not that specifically that I would say I don't like. I think that there's something supernatural in them, in what they're trying to fill.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because basically what I do in this article, which is written for people who aren't Christians, to just say, oh, I see your fascination with witches. This is what I see being perhaps two of the reasons, which we've kind of very briefly touched upon. So the first one is a lot to do with feminist identity.
Yes.
Because as well as us having a fascination in fictional witches, we have a serious fascination with the medieval witch trials. And
I think there's something historical to learn in that. Absolutely. And I don't think that is about witchcraft and casting spells and potions. No. That is about the control of women and using ways, if a woman's not behaving as expected, it's a fear of anything that could derail the sort of male power.
And some people would say spirituality that isn't mediated through men as well. Any kind of spirituality which wasn't mediated through men was considered witchcraft. Now, rightly or wrongly, I'm not a historian, but that's really interesting too. So any kind of form of mystical. So some of the very earliest and most influential women in the early church, I learned at a conference the other day, were considered witches. They were just Christians, but their Christianity was not mediated through men. And so their experiential spirituality, which was deeply rooted in Jesus, was considered witchcraft by the people around them. Yeah. So there's that. And I also think that
certainly what happened and the treatment of those women at the hands often of the church was abhorrent and like completely, you know, the idea that you drown someone and if they survive it, then they're a witch, therefore you kill them. And if they don't survive it, they're dead, but at least you know they weren't a witch. Like, come on, there's no... no one wins. It's
nobody wins.
Absolutely outrageous. So I can understand people looking back on that time in history and feeling absolutely outraged by it. Yeah.
But also in a contemporary way. So I've noticed that there are a huge amount of articles on, like, studying witchcraft helped me with my mental health. It helped me deal with my endometriosis. Studying witchcraft has helped me deal with postpartum mental illness. There are loads of articles and there's an amazing film out all about this kind of thing. And I think there's also something about the fact that women's bodies are still regarded as mysterious things. And it's less painful for us to cling to this idea that they're mysterious because there's some kind of spiritual, magical reason why, as opposed to our bodies are just horrifically under-researched. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's way more enchanting for us to be like, our bodies are mysterious and we don't know what's happening within them, and they're magical and they do things we can't comprehend and they're tied to the moon, as opposed to saying, do you know what, if endometriosis affected men, it'd probably have a cure by now. Mate, that's a painful reality.
When I was researching for notes on feminism, something like, I can't remember the exact stats, but there were some medicines that they had just not tested on women because it was very difficult to do that because of the hormone fluctuations that we naturally experience. They were like, well, you can't get steady results, so we just test it on men. It's like, well, okay, but we will be using this. So to understand how it responds to our bodies with those different hormone fluctuations is actually super important. Should we readdress that?
No? Exactly. So I think there's a lot of that in it, that past and present, we're kind of drawn to witches as kind of this symbol of resistance, of rebellion. But then there's also exactly what you've already touched upon. We always talk and write about this in different spheres in different ways, is this idea that we crave a spiritual world, a world where all that we see is not all that there is. And it taps straight into that desire, that inkling within us that we were made for something more. that we
Yeah.
have spiritual components to us, that we have supernatural components to us, that exists in the world, that we live in an alive universe,
Yeah.
and we can engage in it. So it's
If I
like
wasn't a
it pulls
Christian,
on
I
both of
would
those
rock up.
things.
I would be that person who goes to a tarot card reader.
Yeah, me too.
The idea of that, the idea of someone being able to give me some kind of insight into the future. If I didn't have that sort of faith and trust in God that He has got my path sorted, I would need to cling on to something.
Yes.
And I think I can totally see the appeal. I just fundamentally do not believe it, and I think that to indulge in it would be dangerous.
Yeah, totally. No, I agree. Like materialism, secularism is bleak.
Yeah.
It's not, it is a worldview that is so, grim and bleak.
Yeah.
So those were my two reasonings as to why witchcraft continues to just catch our eye and dominate. And why as well, again, thinking about witchcraft in particular, it's the place where those two things intersect, where you can show up as your full female self, feel celebrated, feel that your gender is
powerful.
Is a powerful thing, and you get to have these spiritual experiences, and you don't need to sort of like be a bit less feminine to be a bit more spiritual, which I think is something that is quite a radical notion.
If someone's listening to this and they're like, actually, I feel there's a gap for that in my life and I don't quite know how to fill it in a sort of Christian sense. I read a book, and I read it because I was researching for notes on feminism, but also, you write a column for Women Alive.
Why, yes, I do.
I used to write for Women Alive, and Tola Dole Fisher, who is their editor-in-chief, she's phenomenal. It's like a total powerhouse. And we'd have meetings and stuff. And anytime it was like a menopause or a menstruation article or something, I'd be like, yeah, we'll totally do that. Oh. Like, I just like totally honest. I'm like, I think it's important. I want someone to do it. I just don't want it to be like me who's editing it or publishing. Like that should be out there. I just don't want anything to do with it, basically. Sure. So I wanted to get into a bit more of a mindset around women's bodies and things and not be quite so squeamish around it. So I pushed myself to the extreme, and I read a book called Theology of the Womb, right?
Yeah.
And I'd say, like, if I was at 0, it's at 10, and I now find myself comfortably at 5 because it properly pushed me to my limits. But it's so embraced what we don't understand about our bodies, the mysticism of it, the amazingness of how we're created, the power of the female body, but all in a Christian, very biblical Christian sense. So I think that if people are feeling like Christianity doesn't embrace that or celebrate it in that way, there's a book that I found that I think does.
That's so interesting, because leading on to something else that's sort of a bit of a cultural phenomenon is White Lotus. And we can talk about that in its fullness in a minute. But there's a scene, again, which I wrote about for Seen and Unseen, where 3 friends are having a conversation, and one of them has just done Reiki healing because they're at this hotel and they're at this kind of spa thing. And then her other friend goes, do you know what? I can get on board with that kind of witchy alternative. Those are her exact words, like witchy practice. So much more than I can get on board with Christianity, because she said, I can't see myself in Christianity. It was made by men for men. And then this whole interesting conversation develops. But I think that's also the way that we are seen by people who aren't Christians is, do you know what? Religion, the institutions of it, it was made by men for men.
They can definitely feel that way. Yeah. But certainly, obviously we attribute male gender to God, but that's just for ease of communication, of language, because we don't have anything else. God is not male. Both men and women are made in God's image. So, faith and the spiritual nature of it, no, I don't believe that that's created by anything male gendered or sex at all, because that's not how God works. Obviously, Jesus came as a man, but that's in his cultural context. If he was going to wield any kind of influence or teach, that was completely necessary. But ultimately, religion, yes, is completely, and it's almost like initially it wasn't. And then the women were stripped out at some point and completely silenced.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wrote about that in my book as well.
Ooh, go on. Just give your book. Give it its full title. If we can't plug it in this segment, when can we? Wrap it out.
Well, Notes on Feminism, being a woman in a church led by men. And there's a whole chapter on whether or not you can call God mother. And
really?
Yeah. Have you not read it, mate?
No, I have. But
wow.
you know who
wow.
I have. You know who also calls God mother is my best friend, Julian of Norwich.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Chinny McDonald.
Oh, Chinny
And I was like, are
McDonald.
you best friends with Chinny McDonald? We should all have
I-
lunch.
Yeah, I wish. That's another book. 2 books you should get is Chinny McDonald's 2 books.
God is not a white man. And the new one
God
is
is
that
Not a
on
White Man.
Mary.
Yeah, and Unmaking Mary, Shattering the Myth of Perfect Motherhood. Both are phenomenal pieces of writing.
Okay,
Part
let's link to
memoir,
those.
part sociology, part theology. She is, of course, the director of Theos Think Tank, so a bona fide genius.
And that's certified. That is.
Certified, stamped, done.
Did I interrupt you saying something? And was it about White Lotus?
Probably, because at this stage of my life, I'm never not talking about White Lotus.
I've watched one episode and I just didn't get it.
Yeah.
I didn't get it.
Fair enough.
Like, why is it so great? Can you just tell me what it's about?
Yeah. So White Lotus the White Lotus Hotel is a hotel chain. So season 1 was the White Lotus in Hawaii, in Maui. Season 2 was in Italy. I think it was near Sicily, if I remember rightly. And season 3, we are just outside Bangkok.
Okay.
I think.
Is it the same characters then?
No, this is the thing. So the only constant is the hotel. So it's 3 completely standalone series. There's a tiny bit of overlap, like one storyline weaves its way through all 3. But apart from that, every series, you just meet this new set of guests who are arriving at this hotel. Now, the beauty of this format is that these guests are coming with stories that already exist that you need to piece together. Because they're leaving their lives and coming to the White Lotus for a rest, for a retreat, to hide, to run, to do all sorts. And it's up to you, the viewer, to figure out what has gone on that has led to them coming to this hotel and being in the state that they're in. So it's written and created by Mike White, who, best fact, is Ned Schneebly on School of Rock.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Isn't that rogue?
Yeah, look at him. He's done so well for himself.
Look at him. So he writes it and he directs it, and he's phenomenally clever. But in particular, he's so perceptive. He is so interested in people, interested in how they work. So none of the storylines are cheap or shallow. They're all very intelligent. There's always a lot of darkness to it, but there's also always a huge amount of iconic comedy. And what's really interesting about White Lotus, which I don't think enough people speak about, is the whole premise of the show, really. What we really see is he's very interested in what Francis Spufford calls the human propensity to F things up, right? He's very interested in like how awful humans can be to themselves and to others. And so what you see in every series in a really clever way is what happens when our kind of most selfish desires, whether that be for like money or power or sex or control or status, those things, what happens not only when you lose control of them, but when you lose control of them to such an extent that they gain control of you.
Oh,
and
okay. So these
really
people are making pretty
wheel.
bad decisions.
They're making pretty bad decisions, and they just spiral before your eyes. These people just spiral in a myriad of ways. But what Mike White is so good at is it's not judgy. It's not a judgy show. He's not trying to be like, this is what happens when you are obsessed with sex. Do you know? Like, that's not going to happen.
Okay.
He's just going to let you see what happens when you let yourself spiral.
So do you like the characters as you see them unravel? Or
a bit of both.
You built up to not like them?
Well, it's multiple things happen. Some you start and you think, ew. And then by the end, you're like, ah. Some the opposite happens. You start thinking, oh, what a lovely character. And by the end, you're like, oh. And some are pretty consistent. You hate them throughout. But it's so clever. And I think that's why, because it really is such a cultural phenomenon. It's the moment. I can't think of another show out right now that people are speaking about in such depth. Like there are whole podcast series that just break open every episode as soon as it happens.
Wow.
Because there's so much to break open.
Yeah.
There are Easter eggs everywhere. There's always murder, but you never know why it's going to come, to whom it's going to come, who's going to do the murder. You just know that one will happen. So you're constantly trying to piece together like, oh, I think so. Oh, it's just excellent. It's genuinely excellent TV, but also has some really like, it's jarring to watch, but in quite a helpful way.
Okay.
Have I sold you?
It sounds like it takes some thinking. And I'd say, what with me being an hour down at the moment, I'm looking for more like less thinky TV. But I can see myself going to it. Which streaming platform is this on?
It's on Now TV because it's a HBO. So the only downside
Now
of
TV.
that is that they are releasing one a week. You got to wait for it. It's a one a week situation.
Yeah, they did that with Only Murders in the Building as well,
Yeah.
the last season. And
Who do they think they are?
yeah, come on.
Doing
Well,
this
I
stuff.
usually wait till the end and then I'll be like, right, I can watch it. And I'm right in thinking that the last episode of this current White Lotus season is out next week, is it? So if I'm going to do that, then now's the time, right?
Now is the time. And there's a previous 2 seasons. Jennifer Coolidge is in it and she's iconic.
Stifler's mum.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the old bend and snap, don't mind if I do.
Yeah.
You don't know that? You just pulled a face. Legally Blonde.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. That's it. She's there and she's as iconic as I've ever seen her.
Okay.
She's amazing. Oh my gosh, it's just so good. But it is also a really funny. It's a really funny, witty show as well. You know, a bit like we said last week about adolescence, which is very, very different.
Yeah.
I just find it really as interesting when a show will just like capture people's imaginations immediately. I like wondering why it's happening.
I have to say, even though I didn't get into it, I was completely like surrounded by it. Every time a new season comes out, I'm fully aware. It's on the WhatsApp groups. People are commenting. People are checking if people have watched this latest episode. So I know that I'm in the minority, having not been captivated by it. And I do think that's interesting. It's interesting when, you know, when people get really swept up by something, for sure.
Yeah, totally. I think as well, the fact that it was always set in a hotel and that they always release it kind of mid-Feb. And it's always in Hawaii or Thailand. Or I think there's that as well. Like it hits your hotel fix, you know?
Yeah, you're ready for it.
Oh, you're so ready for it.
So ready for it. Yeah, a bit of winter sun. Absolutely.
Winter sun.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
But what we will talk about this week is Snow White.
Oh,
because
we will.
Who would think everyone would kick off so much about a blooming Disney reenactment?
Who would think? So... I have not seen it. Lauren, I don't think you have seen it.
I have not seen it. And I don't think I'm going to.
No,
I haven't seen any of them, really.
I think that's the whole point, is no one's seen it. And yet everybody's talking about it. So just for anyone who, like, this hasn't come across their desk yet, this is the live-action Snow White. So it's starring Rachel Zegler as Snow White, Gal Gadot as the evil queen. And it's directed, and I only learned this today, by Mark Webb, who did 500 Days of Summer, which is like perhaps my favourite film of all time.
Yeah, I've not watched that actually. But yeah, they do that, don't they? Because Guy Ritchie was the director of Aladdin, which was another odd recruitment decision.
Yeah.
So I guess they just go for big names because...
I guess they do. Yeah, and the guy who did, I can't remember his name. I think it might be Bill Condon or something. If that's right, I'll be so impressed with myself. But he did all the Twilights and then he went and did Beauty and the Beast. So you're right, they do have this kind of...
Beauty and the Beast was legit. Beauty and the Beast and Cinderella, of those live action things.
Which, of course, was Kenneth Branagh.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But I didn't think the same of Jungle Book or Lion King. I haven't seen Little Mermaid, to be fair. Or I didn't see Dumbo when they did that. There's a few others, but they just don't seem to have captivated people's imaginations in the same way.
And this one has captivated people's hatred, apparently. So it's currently scoring at a 1.6 out of 10 on IMDb, which is lower than Dumbo. Lower than Cats. Do you remember when they did that Cats musical? And
everyone was so outraged about Cats. Poor Taylor Swift.
Poor Taylor Swift. That's got a 2.9. So this is just to put this
twice
in
as good.
And
Cats was twice as good.
6. So people are not loving it.
Is it the film that people are hating? Is it Rachel? Is it her promo? Because there's a lot of vitriol towards her specifically at the moment.
Yes to all of it is the thing. Yes, there's a lot of vitriol towards Rachel. And this is for a few reasons. There's just some straight up racist reasons because she's Latin American. And people are saying
Snow White should be super white.
Snow White is supposed to have skin as white as snow. Yeah, so what's she doing? Then she clapped back, I think, and just thought, I don't know this, but I assume that she was like, I'm going to go on the best defense is a good offense, right?
Right, okay. That sounds like a sporting reference. Well done, Belle.
Yeah, thank you so much. So she just went in and she started saying things like, I hated the cartoon when I watched it as a child.
Yeah, I've seen
I did not enjoy it. She said, like, don't you think that the 90s, because of course it came out in 1937, the cartoon, Disney cartoon. Don't you think that that's a bit weird? I found it a bit weird. She falls in love with a guy that basically stalks her. Trust us, this film will be nothing like that. And then everyone was like, oh, here we go. Then there was all of this controversy around the dwarfs, the 7 dwarfs. Peter Dinklage came out and said, you cannot, in this day and age, make a film about 7 dwarfs. Disney said, oh my gosh, you're right. We're going to call them the 7 magical creatures. And they are CGI characters that are never called dwarfs. And then you had a load of actors with dwarfism saying, are you joking? This could have been our big break and it's been taken away from us. And now you're erasing us from the screen. So that was all happening. Then you've got this rumours of a feud between Gal Gadot, who of course is Israeli, and Rachel Zegler, who has been very publicly pro-Palestine. So there's been rumours of a rift between those two. So all of that has been happening.
This is like It Ends With Us, Don't Worry, Darling style drama around the film. People are really buying into these like sagas around the promoting of a film these days, aren't they?
Isn't it? So I read the Rolling Stone review to prepare for this, and they started with this line, which is so good, where they said every movie is also a documentary of the moment in which it is made. And I think that's true, is that you can see this as a documentary for the moment in which it is made, which is just that we love to see hate between actors. Yeah. We love to pull people down. A Disney film cannot just be a Disney film. It has,
Yeah. Appearance-wise, I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with the casting. And I get really bored of, people kicking off about Ariel being black and stuff like that. Like, come on, guys, let's just get over that. I'm done with it.
Fictional.
I think that she is an incredibly beautiful woman who they've like styled in quite an unattractive way. But then I guess that's fine. Like, it's not about being exceptionally, it's not about looking the absolute best you can. It's about portraying the character.
I have seen a lot of hate for the Bob though. So
yeah, I've seen a lot of that. And I agree to the extent that it's not a super flattering look for her, but who cares? Like, she's acting and that's how they've styled her. I saw a sort of twin up of an interview with her and then an interview with one of the other, so like Lily James, Emma Watson when she played Belle, talking about the character in a positive and empowering way versus her absolutely slating the film. And it is a stark contrast, right? Particularly when you put them next to each other like that. The thing is, right, you can imagine getting the call to do that. That's your big break. That's absolutely huge. That's like such a big deal. And I remember when they cast Naomi Scott as Jasmine, what a huge deal that was for her. And she's an incredible Christian as well. So that was super exciting. So this is like career-making sort of casting. But then you've got to balance that with the fact that Snow White is not a good, if you rewatch it, I rewatched Snow White when I wrote Notes on Love because I did a chapter on Disney and how it set up our expectations of romance. And Snow White does not say a single word to Prince Charming through the entire film. He does stalk her. He approaches her while she's outside cleaning. He tries to get her attention. She's shocked. She runs inside. He doesn't take no for an answer. He stands there. He continues shouting at her house, hoping that she'll come to the window and accept his advances. In the modern day and age, that man's getting arrested. He completely invades her personal space. It's not cool. She's not to be encouraged. But then the next time you see her speaking about him, she talks about falling in love with a man that she met, and she's not said anything to him. And by the time he takes her off into the sunset, she's still not said a word directly to him. So I can understand her being like, this is not a story I want to condone. If we can make it into something powerful. I think the issue is that she's coming across as insecure about her decision to feature in the film off the back of that. And she's going negative rather than going like, how great that we get to rewrite this story in a modern way, that we can empower the character, that we can challenge the narrative around these Disney princesses, and we can do something incredible with a story that at the time really captured people's imaginations. And I want it to do that again, rather than being like, how crap was that?
Yeah, totally. I think, this always happens. The unfortunate thing for this film in particular as well is that apparently it's just really lame. Like, so the actual film isn't good. So I think maybe people would have been more like...
would have loved that kind of chat.
Yeah.
If it had actually been a good film.
But actually, apparently it's rubbish. I think because it's I think what you've said of Rachel, I fell into a hole basically last night about this and sort of read everyone's comments on it. And it sounds like what you said about Rachel, every single person involved with the film has also done, including Disney themselves. They decided they were going to make this remake. They got like an onslaught of people saying, are you sure? Are you sure you want to retell this story? Are you sure you want to retell this as a love story? Are you sure you want a film in which, you know, we explicitly have, you know, in quotation marks, 7 dwarves? Are you sure? And it's like Disney and everyone involved have been like, oh, are we sure? Are we sure we want to do this? And have just kind of like scaled it back as much as they can. So, for example, the premiere was tiny. No press were allowed. It happened in the daytime. Very few.
No, that's silly. Yeah. If you're going to do it, back yourself. Do it well and do it incredibly and rewrite the narrative in a positive way. Don't do it and then be like, oh, we hope no one notices.
Yeah. Oh, let's just slip this in under the radar, which seems to be what they're doing. So that is that. And yeah, I'm not a huge Disney remake girl, although I did like The Little Mermaid, actually.
Maybe I'll watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, I really loved the guy who played Eric, though. So, but again, the whole thing,
I tell you, the one that was absolutely mind-blowingly good was Mulan. The remake of Mulan was it is a standalone film that is absolutely spectacular. I highly recommend that.
You're right.
Particularly if you don't want the sort of Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, like love story things.
Yeah.
That was really good. But otherwise, I'm like, Oh, Cruella. That doesn't count as an action remake, does it? It wasn't really 101 Dalmatians. But the Cruella origin story, also with Emma Stone, really
it's also really good. I agree.
Really strong. Yeah.
That probably counts. You can stick that in the category.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah,
I think, look, I cannot believe the ground. Do your legs hurt from covering so much ground today?
It's been quite the marathon, hasn't it?
It has. And given that we're running on so little sleep, one hour less from my usual 9 hours a night.
Yeah. I know. Anyone who's got kids or just anything that keeps them up at night.
They hate us.
I'm sorry.
If you're listening to this at 3 a.m. because you've got your earphones in whilst you rock little Felix back to sleep, I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry. And I'm here for you. And you have my prayers and my love.
And we're grateful that you spent this time with us as well.
Gosh, yes.
Guys, we can't wait to see you next week. Have a great week, Belle. Let's hope the quality of your work manages to pick up again, for Nick's sake, if anything.
For Nick's sake. Yeah. Pray for him too, everybody.
Yeah. Have a great week, guys.